If you want to continue it, can we continue it?
We record. Thank you. Welcome to the Sacramento County Civil Service Commission meeting for September 24th, 2021. In compliance with directives of the county, state, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this meeting is live streamed and closed to the public. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, please dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in the queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be transferred from the queue into the meeting and make a verbal comment. Written comments are always appreciated. Please send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net. Your comment will be routed to the board, actually to the commission, and filed in our record. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn the meeting over to you to call to order.
I will call the meeting to order, and I will ask Gina to call the roll, please.
All right. Commissioner Blois?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Present.
Commissioner Nelson? Commissioner Suter?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Public comment. At this time, anyone may address the commission regarding any item that is not already scheduled on today's meeting agenda and is within the commission's subject matter jurisdiction. However, the commission may not take action on such items except as authorized by Government Code Section 5495-4.3 and Civil Service Commission Rule 14.13. Do we have any public comment?
No public comment received.
The clerk's
Hearing-
office did not receive any public comments.
Hearing none, we will move to consent matters, which is item 4 and 5. Do the commissioners have any questions of those? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Ron Suter, I move approval of the consent matters, item 4 and 5 on today's agenda.
This is Nick Blois. I second that motion.
I will call for the question. And all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Actually, we need to have a voice call vote and just confirm there's no public
Gina, would
comment.
you call the roll, please, again?
Commissioner Blois, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Nelson, how do you vote? Commissioner Suter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Let the record show that we have a duck quacking.
That's my phone.
Let the record show that the motion has been adopted. Gina, just for further reference, no need to call Mr. Nelson's name, given that we do know he will not be present for today's meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 6, which is Department of Personnel Service Monthly Provisional Appointments Status Report.
Yes,
Could we
yes.
have that report, please?
Yes, good afternoon, Commission. Cressy Neto with the Department of Personnel Services. The August 2021 provisional report is up to date. So with that, I request that you approve the report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Move approval of the Civil Service Commission, of the status report on provisional appointments for August 1st through August 31st.
Do I hear a second? I second.
Here we go.
Is there any public comment?
To accept the Department of Personnel's monthly provisional status report, Gina, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Chairman, can we first ask just to ensure there's no public comment?
No, that no public comments have been received.
Thank you. Okay. Gina, you can call the roll now,
Okay.
please.
Commissioner Blois, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Suter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Let the record show the motion has been adopted unanimously.
Thank you.
We now move to item 7, revised Sacramento County classification plan as recommended by the 2020 Construction Labor Compliance Series class study. Established the following classes within the proposed construction labor compliance series: construction labor compliance technician, senior construction labor compliance technician, and construction labor compliance supervisor. Pursuant to Civil Service Rules 2.6C, grant permanent status to one of the specific incumbents into proposed construction labor compliance technician classes, 2 specified incumbent to the proposed senior construction labor compliance technician class, and 1 specific incumbent to the proposed construction labor compliance supervisor class. Is DPS ready to give their report?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, perfect. Hello, good afternoon, commissioners. Mark Galimba, senior personnel. Oh, let me turn on my camera. I'm sorry here. I'm new to this. Here we go. Hello, how you doing? Mark Galimba,
Good.
senior personnel analyst, presenting on behalf of the Department of Personnel Services. We request that your commission adopt the Construction Labor Compliance Series and grant status to 4 incumbents in the series. The Construction Management and Inspection Division within the Department of Community Development requested that DPS study the engineering technician positions within the labor compliance section to determine if the positions were appropriately classified. As a result, the study, we are proposing 3 new classes: the Construction Labor Compliance Technician, the Senior Construction Labor Compliance Technician, and the Construction Labor Compliance Supervisor. Juan Chavez, the Chief Construction Management Inspection Division, and I are here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
And let the record show that, commissioners, you have my report and recommendations before you as well.
I would ask the commission, does anyone have any questions?
I just always like to have a little more discussion when you're granting permanent status. Is this a clear transfer, equal one position to the other? I don't want, and I was looking, I'm sorry, I could section, there it is. I was looking for the organization chart. Okay, so let me ask again the question. Can you discuss the incumbent issue for me, please?
Can you expand on that, sir?
Okay.
Which,
all 3 of the incumbents, you're transferring them to a new and new class. Is that class equal totally in the class they currently are? 1, and are they in agreement with the permanent status issue? And are these permanent employees currently?
yes, they are all permanent employees. Actually, I believe one is is probationary, and
Okay, if he's on probation, we granting permanent status? Even
No.
though he's on
So Mark, I was not aware that we had any of the incumbents were on probation. Our report reflects, I believe, I know we've been working on so many class studies lately, but I had them all in permanent status. So
I believe they may be in permanent status. My apologies. Maybe I grabbed them because I know we discussed earlier, and you requested if I believe they are permanent status. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the information.
I don't want someone to say, I believe. I want someone to say they are, or we would have to look into it.
We will have to look into it. I'm almost positive that they are permanent. Yes, sir.
But you raised the issue for me, and so that is a question mark.
So for the purposes of the record, the information that you provided to me, Mark, in that chart that I specifically asked you for to delineate whether or not they were probationary or permanent, your information reflected that all 4 were permanent. So if all 4 are permanent, then all 4 would be granted permanent status. If one is on probationary, then we need to know exactly which one that is. But based on the chart that you sent to me when we had that discussion a week or two ago, that information reflected all permanent. You'd indicated, I think there was a person that was, that just passed probation in June. I believe that was for this study, or it might have been another one.
And this is Juan here, Division Chief for CMID. I can confirm that all the existing staff, the incumbents are all permanent status as of now.
So you're saying they all are?
Correct, yes.
Okay.
So then,
And are they
Mr.
being-
Seaver, according to our rules, then they are granted status based on their current status. So if they're permanent for probationary, they're probationary. So in this instance, we just had confirmation again
Okay.
that they are permanent, so they would be granted permanent status.
Okay, that answered that question, but the question I have also, are they being transferred into equal and like classes that they were before? And do they all agree on this transfer?
The
They are
class, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that the classes, right now, the incumbents are performing the duties as described in the proposed classes. So they are like classes, and that's why they are requesting that they be, or that is why the department is requesting that they be granted status. And I found that to be the case as well. So they are performing those duties, so it would be appropriate under our civil service rules to grant them status. They do, that does meet our criteria. On whether or not they agree or not, that is something that I'll defer to DPS.
You know, again, I don't mean to be picky on this, but just because they are performing the task doesn't mean the class is being equally transferred. Because you can always be performing tasks of a higher job, and to say that they're being provisionally transferred because they're doing the work is not the same as saying they're being transferred and granted permanent status because the classes are the same, that they're being reclassified. That makes sense?
So the civil service rules governing the granting of status are this. And we're looking at specifically Rule 2.6C. It says, the commission may grant the same status to the incumbent in the new class as he or she held in the formerly applicable class if the incumbent meets the minimum qualifications for the new class and the commission finds that either or both of the following requirements are met. Number one, the reallocation resulted from a class study which affects all employees in a department, a major division of a department, or an occupational field, and or the duties of the position have continually evolved over a long period of time while occupied by the incumbent and have become significantly broader in scope or more difficult and complex, thereby providing the basis for reallocation to the new class. So for the purposes of your consideration today, you shall determine whether or not A, the incumbents meet the MQs, which according to the Department of Personnel Services, they would, and B, whether or not they met one of those two criteria. And it does, because the reallocation did result from a class study which affected all of those within the construction labor compliance. So those are the criteria that you have to base your decision on. Or if their duties have evolved over a long period of time, which the department has also found that the duties of those positions have evolved. So those are the criteria under which you need to make your decision on
Okay.
granting status.
Then the question is for the department, have these people agreed to being transferred to a new class? I mean, new title, new job class?
So
That is a consideration that we have to take into consideration that
We actually don't take that into consideration, Commissioner Seaver.
you may not, but I do. Okay.
That, yes, and that's certainly your prerogative, but according to the rules, that is not
Okay, I don't want to transfer someone in from a class that they already hold and they have taken the test, they're in that class, and now we arbitrarily transfer them to a new job title. So my question to the department, have all 4 of these people agreed to being granted permanent status in these new job titles?
So again, the Juan here, Division Chief. Not exactly, and what I mean by that, to clarify, is there's more elements to this that have their interest. Primarily, it's once, assuming this was to move forward and the new classification gets created, there is some interest as to what the representation group will be and whether that will cause any changes to current, benefit or status, as well as salary assignments to the positions, because those are things that have, just because of the process, aren't established quite yet. So the positions themselves, though, just alone and given what's in the class study, there's been no opposition to that as it stands today.
And one thing just to keep in mind is that if the Board of Supervisors reallocates those classes, they take action and reallocate them, because that's what's before the commission today and then the board. If this commission does not grant status to those individuals and their positions have been reallocated, then those individuals will have to be transferred to other positions because, and they're going to have to wait to compete for those jobs.
That's not my point. My point is, if I'm going to approve this today, I'm not going to send it to the board. I agree. I'm not going to send it to the board, but I'd like to know if these people have agreed to us making them a permanent status in another job title. That's all I'm asking. I mean, I will not vote for this moving forward. I understand that they would now, without us granting permanent status, but I want to make sure they have agreed and looked at this and said, yeah, I want to be the new class. That's all I'm saying. And I'm hearing that the department is saying, nah, there's some other issues. And so that concerns me.
But then, so this is the situation that we find ourselves in is that while I absolutely respect Commissioner Studer, what you're saying, and that you're taking into consideration what the employees want to do. And I appreciate that. And I know that Mr. Chavez appreciates that as well, because our staff are important and valuable assets to the way we do our business, and they're important, and what they want to do and what they don't is important. But if the commission moves forward with the study and approves these classifications, and then the Board of Supervisors reallocates those positions, those individuals will no longer be able to have the jobs they currently have. They would have to be
I
moved.
understand that. I understand.
So, and
that.
I don't, so what can happen is that if the commission grants the status, and during the labor negotiations part of this, which is outside of our jurisdiction, if the employees make a request to the hiring authority, the department, they can certainly request that their positions not be reallocated. And that's something that the department outside of the commission's jurisdiction could decide to do, which happens from time to time, where you'll have a department that says, we're going to hold these positions. They're going to remain in their current classification, and through attrition, we will then move them into the new classes. So if a person is in their class, in the engineering technician, and it would remain, the classification would remain that position, that classification, until the individual, let's say, retired. Let's just say they retired, they took another job. Then when a vacancy became available, that position would then be allocated to the new labor compliance technician. So that happens quite a bit, and that's up to the department. And that's a decision that's made outside of our jurisdiction. And so while I think it's important to certainly consider how our employees feel, the appropriate time for them to have that conversation is with the department once we've approved the classes themselves. If this commission decides not to grant these individuals status, then truly then the department cannot allocate those positions into the new classifications unless those individuals are moved to something else. They'd have to be moved out of that division into another position, doing something completely different. I don't think we have the incumbents. They might be listening. So when we can certainly open it up to public comment. You can hear from them. But that's where the difficulty lies. And I think that when I've had substantial conversations with DPS about the granting of the status, and it, it's a delicate matter, but the reality is that you give those employees the greatest option by granting them status. If you don't, then the only way they have an opportunity to go into that position is by competition. And so we're granting the most flexibility to the employees and the department by granting them status. And I'm sure that Rebecca would agree with me and our council.
I'm not asking that. All I'm asking is, when this was moving forward, were these 4 employees brought into the queue and talked to about this job class? I don't remember ever, and I'm sorry, ever doing a class study in any of my years and not bringing the people who were going to be incumbents into the process. That's inclusive and being part of the process. So, and I know you're shaking your head and you're saying one thing, and I don't think we should prove this unless we have the 4 incumbents saying, yeah, that was talked to me. I'm okay with it. I understand my flexibility.
Yes, and they were talked to. I know that if you will recall, this study was initially scheduled for consideration by this commission in April. At the last minute, we pulled it at the union's request. And so, Mark, you can talk about whatever discussions you've had with the incumbents, because that's conversations that DPS has between the union and DPS and the employees. So I will defer to Mark as to how much conversation you've had with those individuals.
My basic question to the department is, are these 4 people okay with us granting permanent status to them in these new job classes? That's all I'm asking.
And what I think, if the department's not able to answer, the individuals may be available during public comment to answer that question for themselves.
The department should be able to answer it, but if not, okay.
I don't know. I'm just saying if they can't. So Mr. Chavez, can you answer that question for Mr. Suter?
Yeah, I can say, or I'm sorry, go ahead.
Excuse me, to maybe add a little bit more to that. Since the issue is raised, it's looking at the organizational chart, the current and the proposed. There is a principal engineering technician, at least one, that is moving to labor compliance now, career ladder, and is not becoming a senior construction labor compliance technician. He's retaining his current classification of a principal engineering technician. My understanding is he did not want to change classifications. And there could be many reasons for that. An engineering technician may have greater promotional opportunities. He may be concerned about his new salary and benefits in the future going to be, and somehow you cannot reassure him of that. So I think Mr. Suter's question is very appropriate, since there is an exception already made.
And that, in that instance, because initially there was a request, but because that individual, there is no principal classification within the new series, the department made the decision that it wasn't going to allocate that position, that position was going to remain in the current classification. And once that individual leaves that classification, then the department will reallocate it to the senior position.
Yeah.
So for that particular individual, like I said, there wasn't that principle. The department can also decide the same for the current.
I'd rather have Mr. Suter's question, because if they made an exception for one employee, what if the other 4 going, I'd rather stay in the other class because it's for a variety of reasons.
The difficulty is that these incumbents are currently performing the duties of the new classifications. And so that's why the department even asked for the class study to begin with, is because you have the incumbents that are performing the new duties. But the department at the end of the day, can make a decision on whether or not it wishes to allocate those positions. What the commission is being asked to do is two things. Number one, to approve the classifications themselves. And number two, to grant status to those individuals should the positions be allocated. The commission does not determine whether or not the positions will be allocated. That is up for according to our rules, that is a decision that is made by the department through the budgetary process with the Board of Supervisors. And so the department will make that determination as appropriate.
So
but-
are you saying, Alice, the employee that is a engineering technician now, whatever he
Mhm.
is, he goes, I want to stay as an engineering technician, cannot do that.
The department has to make the decision to keep that position as an engineering technician. So it's not the commission that would decide that, it's the department, because the department is responsible for the allocation of the positions.
And so the only right
So the employee
has
could-
is going, I don't want to go to the new position for what variety of reasons, and then either what, the person
They-
gets laid off, or
They would move,
because there's no
yes.
positions anymore.
Because the issue is that you have two issues. You have the issue of classification, and then you have the position itself. So if the department chose to reallocate those positions to the new classifications as approved, then the incumbents would either have to, in order for them to retain that position, to continue doing that job they're doing now, they would either have to have status granted to them by this commission, or they would have to compete just like everybody else would for those positions. But if the
There
department,
are a-
if the department felt, the department has every right, and I'm not saying they would do
I'm not
this.
saying they don't,
Yes,
but
but
I'm
if they,
going, what right does, the employee says, I took a test and I became a principal engineering technician, and that's what I want to be.
then they can
And why,
remain, but
pick, the guy.
They only
next to
can,
me,
they
not
only
me.
can remain if the department allows them to remain.
in
Yeah.
that
And that's my
position,
issue.
in that position, if they choose to not move over into the new classification, they can't choose not to do it. The department is either going to reallocate a position or not. It's not the employee's choice to stay in the only, and then that's the difficulty is that the department controls the allocation process itself. And if an employee refuses, even though status has been granted to them to go into that new classification, and they want to stay in their current classification, then it would be incumbent upon the department to find another job, another position that allows them to continue to function in their classification.
Or
What
lay
the
them
emplo-
off.
Or
Or
lay
lay
Well,
them off.
And I don't think they would lay, I mean, there, in the rules, it states that if they're not granted status, they can find another, the department would find them another position, but
But
yes.
If there is no position, they can be laid off.
They could.
The only process that I ever was involved is all the employees were always discussed. What are you doing?
Mhm.
What is your job? What do you think you should do? And all I'm asking, were the employees, when the study was developed, were they talked to determine what their job was? Because that's how they determine jobs, is they talk to employees.
Yes, and they were
And then
consulted during.
Alice, my only
Mhm.
question is, were these 4 employees, were they part of the process? Was it totally open? And are they aware of what's happening? And did they all agree to it? Pretty simple.
And I have to defer to the department on that because that's part of what they do.
No, I would agree. You have to defer to the department. And that's what I'm asking. I'm asking the department, were these 4 people involved in the process? And do they agree on us granting status to them? I have never had an employee, when I asked that question for the many years I've been here, all employees will say, yeah, I want to be granted status. That is part of the process. All I'm asking is, were these 4 people involved in the process, and did they agree to the granting the permanent status in the new job title?
And this is Juan again. I can clarify, yes, they were involved in the process, and yes, they were agreeable to the reallocation with the understanding of some of the details that were explained in regards to the department having discretion of the reallocation, assuming the new classifications are created. And to clarify, hopefully that makes sense, meaning that they're not opposed to being granted that permanent status, so long as there's an opportunity for the department to still have that discretion, just as we were talking with the principal level, for instance, to remain in that class, subject to some of the further details that would occur after today's meeting, assuming it moves forward. Hopefully that makes sense.
No, but some basic question: were these 4 people aware of what we're doing today, and did they agree to what we're doing today?
Yes, I can say
Okay,
yes.
that's all I ask. Thank you.
May I be a fly in the ointment and ask the director, there was an exception made for one employee. And I'm glad we're able to deal with each employee individually. But that was because they did not want to move over and be reallocated?
Correct. On the one principle, and Mark, you might be able to elaborate
Okay.
more based on your involvement with the study itself.
Yes, so when we developed the classes, we determined that based on evaluation of what they were doing, there was no principal level within that class, because you had your entry and working level, which is the tech level, and you had your advanced journey level, the / lead level, which is your senior. And then there didn't appear to be a need for a principal level, because it went straight up to the supervisor level. So since we had the 3 levels and the principal incumbent, there would have been no place for him to go. We decided to leave him in his principal position, and the principal engineering tech job class does allow for some labor compliance work to be performed.
So you're saying the principal would not qualify for the supervising engineer technician? Is that what you're saying?
I did not say that. I didn't check whether he qualified for that, because we're seeing if he can go in to the principal. He wouldn't be able to go into the principal because there is no principal. But the duties that he's performing were more consistent with the senior construction labor compliance tech.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Johnson?
Kinda.
Okay.
Are there
Okay.
further questions?
Yes, I do.
Can I-
Does any of the commissioners have any further questions?
No, I just had a motion to approve.
Okay, I have a couple more questions if you would allow me to.
I will second that motion pending discussion. Are these employees online by chance?
What I wanted to do was to ask if, once we're ready, once the commission has finished asking their questions, then we'll see if there's any public comment. So
I don't know that we can finish asking our questions until after the public comments. How's
okay.
that?
Is there any public comment, Alma?
We have not received any verbal or written public comments on this item.
Okay, I'll ask my questions at DPS. You have education as the substitute for experience based on 30 units. Is that correct?
Yes.
And one is the 30 units for 1 year of experience what I'm asking, is that the new standard DPS is using? Because looking at the engineering series in the MQs there, it is requiring 36 units to equal 1 year of experience.
Rebecca Stucker, Department of Personnel Services. Yes, I would say we are moving towards the 30 units is our standard for 1 year of experience.
Stewards of the lands on which these parks sit.
And looking at the engineering technician series, that it's an older series. Let's see, it was last revised in 1994. Those may have been the standards we were using back at that time, but you know, when we do move forward with the engineering technician series, we would evaluate that and most likely go to our 30 units.
I didn't know if DPS was going to try to standardize some of that language in educational experience and substitutions.
We are as we move forward with the revising our specs.
One is for me to understand that is the substitution is from accredited college, university, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In business and accounting, business administration, construction management, engineering, labor relations, labor law, or related subjects. And it is the 30 units. Does all 30 have to be within that field? Because I know when you go to college, usually you have other requirements like English, certain amount of government, certain amount of maybe even science. Like I believe in a junior college, the major in a junior college is only 24 units, and in a university, probably 36, depending on what field it is, 36 units. So this, in a way, looking at it is, if it has to be specifically in those classes only, and when you review it, it doesn't take in all those other classes that most students will have to take, that is more, instead of like 1 year, that's more like 2 to 3 years, 2.5 years.
Almost a degree. It's almost a 4-year degree.
So how does the DPS look at that 30 units when they evaluate it? If I came in with 21 units in business, and then I have an English class, a required English class, required government class, or a required science class that is required by the school, how does DPS look at it?
Well, I can speak from a general DPS perspective on this. Just reading it the way it's written, you know, how it says coursework in one of these fields, then yes, they're looking at 30 units in one of those fields or a combination of those fields. I'll defer to Mr. Chavez and to Mark when they were developing this, if that was the intent. I would say in reading it, if you're substituting for a year of directly related work experience, then the education should also be related to that work experience and, you know, gaining the same knowledge, skills, and abilities. But once again, I'll defer to Mr. Chavez and to Mark for the intent of that.
Yes, that was the intent.
Okay. My next question is on the technician level, you're requesting 12 months on probation. And reading our executive officer's report, it is because you will need more than 6-month probation to 12 months because of training. Is that correct?
Yes.
What kind of training? Are there standards for the training? Looking at the way the specs is written, the training will be done by the senior compliance technician.
This is Juan
The
here.
supervisor has nothing within his job duties to do anything with education or teaching.
So
I assume it's going to fall upon the senior construction labor compliance technician to do this training. Is that correct?
Yes, and with support from the supervisor as well, but primarily from the senior, yes.
So is there any curriculum or training that is laid out? Like in many fields where there's training, there is a curriculum or classes to be taken or an academy to go on through. There's something specific. Do you have any specific training that you have to give them so we would extend their probation from 6 months to 12 months?
There is, I mean, we have a program that has its own outline and criteria and guidance on our process. There's also, getting familiar with some of the state's Department of Industrial Relations data that as a new, entry-level employee would likely not have any exposure to. So both the internal program guidance, outline that we have, in addition with training them on the state's prevailing wage rates and how to get access to that data is essentially what they would be trained on during those initial 6 months.
So your internal program, is there a length of time it takes to accomplish that?
I'm not certain if it's, necessarily a set amount of time. I think some of it is subject to how well, a new entry level would pick it up, but 6 months seemed appropriate based on kind of the experience we've had thus far.
Do you test them, or is there a standard they must meet, or is it subjective?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't think there's any specific test. Unfortunately, I can't say for certain. I know that there's oversight of the work that's being performed and reports that are prepared that is overseen by the seniors that would evaluate whether they're performing as expected.
Okay. Thank you. Do any of the commissioners have any public or any comment or questions?
I do not know.
Does the public have any comments or suggestions to us?
The clerk's office has not received any public comments, written or verbal.
Well, I believe I have heard a motion second, and I assume it's still valid.
I'm sorry,
With that-
Chairperson Johnson, we do have someone in the attendee side who has their hand raised. I don't know if that's someone who is one of the incumbents. The person's name is Crystal.
Yes,
Kai.
she is an incumbent.
Do you want me to allow her to speak?
Yes, please.
Okay. Crystal, you're now in the meeting. Crystal?
Crystal, you'll need to unmute yourself.
I just realized she may not have a microphone, so she may need a call in. I don't know if there's a call-in number to get the audio for, if she's not
There-
with a icon or computer.
There is a call-in number. The number would be 916.
Hold on a minute, Alice, because she can't get into the meeting on a phone. I can't bring her over that way.
I see.
I have to send her an invite. Is she a county employee? I can send her an invite to her email.
Yes, she is.
Okay, I will do that. Sorry for the delay.
Mhm. Thank you, Alma. Thank you.
And if necessary, we're in the same building. I can always grab her if that turns into something that doesn't work.
Can you have someone go get her and bring her into your meeting? It might be easier.
Yep. In fact, if you excuse me for a second, and probably you guys
Sure.
just grab her.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you. While we wait, Alice, can we jump to your number 8 and come back?
Sure, we can do
Yeah.
that.
Sorry,
So-
Mike,
That's fine. We'll
Let
keep
me
the meeting
just,
moving.
yes, 1 second, because my landline, let me just,
Oh, it looks like we have Crystal on the screen here.
okay.
Good.
All right, so we'll just go ahead and let Crystal speak.
I don't hear her. Do you?
No. She's not speaking.
I believe she's trying to speak, but we cannot hear her.
Right.
Right.
Thank you.
Oh, there she is.
So Juan, would you be able just to bring her?
Unfortunately, I just learned she's not in the office. She's remote this afternoon, so that's we're not in the same location as I thought. So I apologize.
Okay.
Any chance you could call her on the phone and see if her speaker is on? Her volume may be down.
Yes. Crystal, can you hear us? Can you get like a thumbs up if you can hear? Okay, I'm gonna call you.
I can't see her. Aha, there, I see her now.
Crystal, this is Alma from the clerk's office. I just sent you an invite to your actual work email. So if there's a way, oh, okay, that's not gonna work either.
Can you type your number, Crystal, in the chat? I don't know if you have access. Oh, no, there is no chat available.
No.
I don't have,
Is it possible that Juan, you could call her on your phone and
Can
Like-
I see her. Can she unmute herself?
I can call her. I just don't have her home number.
Juan, can you email me her number and I'll call her on my desk phone?
Unfortunately, I don't have her home number. So that's why I was trying to, if Crystal, if you can email me your home number, I can call you. Or if Crystal, if you can call my desk line, I could just put you on speaker here.
That would really be the best way. We've
Yes.
done that before with a commissioner, and if Crystal could just give you a call on your main line, then you can, she can participate verbally over the phone. We did that with one of our closed session with our commissioner.
Just in case she doesn't have my number, I emailed you, Crystal, if you have, let me open her. She's got, there you go. Let me see.
There you go. Thank you.
Hello?
Crystal?
Yes.
All right, we got you. Let me, I'm gonna put the volume as loud as it goes. You might need to speak
Yeah,
up.
I was on over the phone, but everything is muted, so I can't talk.
Okay, no worries.
I unmuted myself on the Zoom call, but yeah.
I just want to check with the board. Can you guys hear her? Okay.
Yes, I can.
Yes. Crystal, can you hear us over the speakerphone?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Go ahead and make your comment because we can hear you just fine.
There was a gentleman on the commissioners board that had asked if we had been formally asked whether or not we want to take the allocation. And we have not been formally asked whether or not we want to take that new position or if we want to stay in our current position. And what we choose is going to be dependent upon further discussion.
So Crystal, this is Alice Dowden Calvillo, and I'm the executive officer for the commission. And I just wanted to explain to you the process that's before the commission right now. So the commission is considering approving the new classifications, the 3 new classifications. The second thing that's before the commission is whether or not to grant the incumbents, the 4 of you, status into those new classifications, should the department choose to allocate those positions into the new classifications. So what happens here is that the commission itself is not determining whether or not your position is reallocated. That's a determination for the Board of Supervisors to make upon recommendation by the department. If the commission agrees to grant status to the incumbents today, what that means is that if the classifications are first approved and the department then chooses to reallocate the position that you're currently in and the other 3 incumbents into the new classifications, if you're granted status, then you would automatically go into those new positions. If you're not granted status and the department chooses to reallocate your position, which it does have authority to do pursuant to the rules, then you would have to compete for those classifications through the examination process if you chose to keep your position, to keep that job. Otherwise, the department would have to move you into a different position doing something else in your current classification. So granting you status today provides the most flexibility for the department and for the incumbents. If through, really, again, it's a decision that's made by the department on whether or not to reallocate those positions. And they can discuss that with you. That is outside of this commission's jurisdiction, but it is something that they would make that ultimate decision. So really, again, the commission granting you status gives you the most flexibility, because if the department, again, reallocates your position to the new classification and you're not granted status, then you can't be in that position until you compete for it, just like everybody else would through the examination process. And if you chose not to, and if you remain in your classification, then you would need to be moved to another position. So that's really what we're trying to do, is to provide you with the department and the employees with the most flexibility.
Alice?
I don't know if that explains things for you, Crystal, or if you have any questions.
Yes, it does. Again, there are, I have fellow coworkers, we're all pretty much in the same boat. We are not crazy about the breakdown of the job classifications, because it does completely eliminate that principal engineering tech position. So, I mean, as long as we, from what I'm understanding and how you're saying, that if the commission goes ahead with this and approves it, there's still that flexibility of us staying, as senior engineering tech and not.
They don't have that flexibility.
Allocation.
Yes, there is the flexibility, because ultimately it's the department's decision. Yes. Ultimately, it's the department's decision if they're going to reallocate that or not. What the department can do, and I'm not speaking for them, I'm simply saying, this is what the options are. And this happens from time to time with different departments with different class studies, is that under some circumstances, a department may decide that once the classifications are approved, the new ones, to retain the current positions in their current classification until the incumbent leaves that position. So for example, until the incumbent retires or gets promoted out or whatever, for whatever reason, leaves that position. And once the position is vacated, then the department could choose to allocate it to the new classification. And departments do that under these kinds of circumstances. Sometimes they don't, but that is up to them to make that determination, but that does happen. And again, it's really, we can't commit that today, because that's not something that the commission is considering, because that's not within our jurisdiction. So the only thing we can either do is grant status or not. But if the commission doesn't grant you status, then you don't have as much flexibility, because if the position is allocated to the new position, then you can't be in it and you'd have to compete for it. And if you're
That's-
okay,
That's only if we approve it without granting status. I am
If the co-
very,
yeah.
Alice, I am very
Mhm.
concerned that you're not the one that should explain this to the employee. It's not your job to explain it to the employee before they come before us. The department should have sit these 4 employees down and explained to them what was going on and what would happen. That's my concern, that the employees are not fully aware of what's happening, and you have to explain it to them. I will not approve this until I talk to the employees. I must be open to a general session, but I find it very disturbing that the employee did not know what was going on and you had to explain it to him. Whether the employee likes it or not, it should have been explained to them. The employee could be unhappy, that's fine, that's the process. But I find it very disturbing that the department left these 4 employees, or seems to me, out of the discussion of this classification. That's my concern.
Mhm. So if I guess for the purposes of our discussion today, the commission can you have a couple of different options. You can approve the classifications themselves and continue the discussion on granting status, or you can just continue the entire item. Then we just run into the issue of meetings, right? When we can put this back. So you can either move forward with the classification if you felt comfortable. You could move forward with both today, with granting status and the classification. You could continue both items, or you can continue one item. But I would, so those are really your options.
Mr.
Excuse
Suter,
me, Alice?
this is Mr. Johnson. I am comfortable with whatever you think is right with that. I am just frustrated that the process was not more inclusive.
Mhm.
Alice or commissioners, I would like to say that I have provided the incumbents with allocation notices of the department's intention to reallocate their positions once this study was approved. So I've actually sent those on 2 occasions. Once in, I believe, in December when we thought we were going to go in January, and then once in, I believe, in April before the April agenda. So I did send them allocation notices on 2 occasions, informing them of the department's intentions.
But it's up to the department to explain it to the employees. The employees are their staff. I find it very alarming that Crystal did not know all the options available to her, that our executive officer had to explain it to her. So okay. Mr. Johnson, I will defer to you. If you're comfortable with what's going on, then we'll approve it. If you're leaning on the fence like I am, I would prefer to have the whole thing brought back after the department includes the employees and discusses the employees. Now, the employees don't have to agree with it, but at least they know what's going on, and they're not blindsided by the commission and then the board of supervisors dictating to them to be in a new class. And I won't approve it without the permanent status issue, because then they do have to compete, which is totally unfair. So that's my position. And I will defer to the chairman. If he wishes to move this forward, I will vote with him. But if he says, no, I think I'm more comfortable with holding it over, then I also agree with that.
I would just like to add one other piece of clarification on what Mr. Galimba said. Yes, the incumbents were sent allocation notices on 2 different occasions. And also we did send them an outline via email to each of them individually, outlining exactly what your executive officer went over and the process and the options that did go out to them as well.
I'm saying that the department should have reached out to the employees. It's really not the personnel department to send them notices. We heard from one that they were not aware of what was going on and was concerned what would happen. So really, it's up to the department to lay out the problems and the issues with what's going on when you grant permanent status. That's my opinion.
This is Mr. Johnson. I would agree with you, Mr. Suter. This is their the employee, it's their livelihood. And yes, I'm sensitive to that. And I know it maybe be a little bit extra work to make sure they understand, but I believe the process would be a lot fairer that way, and we work together. And somehow that seemed to have broken down because we have one employee that's still the only one we've heard of that still seems to be a little confused.
Thank you.
I don't know if Commissioner Blois has anything to add. I know that
I was
he's-
just
even
gonna
though-
ask, do these employees have a union, and was the union involved with a literal meet and confer with this Sacramento County, or am I totally out of the whack here?
It's a meet and discuss. It's not a meet and confer item.
So did they discuss with the union this thing, because the union should be representing these employees
Yes.
in some way? I would feel more comfortable if they had at least talked to them. If they haven't talked to the union, then I not only would want the employees to talk with the department, I'd also want the union to talk with the department, because the employees may not know what they're signing up for.
Right.
I'm just going to be honest. I work for the state of California. I do represent, for the record, I do represent state employees as a union member of SEIU 1000. And I am, appreciate Commissioner Suter's comments, because I did not know this was going on. And I will withdraw my motion and amend it to defer this item to another meeting. And that is my motion to amend, if there's a second, I guess, Mr.
I will withdraw my original second, and I will second the new motion.
I'm sorry to interrupt, members and Alice. We did receive one just a few seconds ago, one written comment. I can read that if you'd like me to, or we can just email it to you, Alice. You can email it to the members.
If you could do both, please.
Okay, thank you. I will start to read the comment now. This is from Eric Matthews, who is a senior construction inspector for the County of Sacramento. It says, will this new class be solely responsible to deal with labor compliance with ongoing and future projects, or will it still be dependent on the field inspector to provide this information of labor on the project? Otherwise, will the contractors be able to provide labor staffing on the project directly to labor compliance, or will it still be the field inspector's responsibility to do so? Labor compliance for inspectors without the training of all the various labor classes that labor compliance verifies is very difficult to get right when it comes to construction labor classifications. For example, there must be 6 different operating engineer classifications, and without training to know which one to use the information provided is never right. In the definitions of the new class, it states they will oversee the work of the staff responsible for ensuring contractor compliance. Who is that staff? Thank you.
And this is from?
I'm sorry. It is from
Eric Matthews. He's a
Okay,
senior.
thank you.
He's
Thank you.
a senior construction inspector. I would defer to Juan to answer that question because it's a technical.
Yes, and I can speak to that. At this time, as part of this reclassification, there's no proposed change. That's kind of speaking, I guess, to our internal process in regards to some of the field work that is involved with labor compliance, in addition to, if I can call it that, the field work, in addition to what's done in the office. And so I do appreciate those comments, Eric, and I think that's certainly something we can look at, and I'm committed to exploring that more in regards to opportunities to enhance our process, either through training or considering some changes. But this reclass doesn't propose to, those changes aren't included in this reclass. So to just answer that question.
Thank you. I do want to go on the record. Commissioner Blois had made a comment with the union, and I want to make it clear that one of the requirements that I have before a class study comes before this commission, before I deem it ready, is that there's been conversations with the union. And I know that as I mentioned previously, and it's reflected on page 10 of my report, that this study was initially scheduled for consideration by this commission in April on the 23rd. And at the last minute, literally the last day, the Thursday before, the union contacted DPS, not me, and requested that this report be pulled because there were concerns with regards to allocation and other items. The study was
Which
pulled.
employee organization contacted you?
That I have never personally heard from the union. I have reached out to them also as part of my process. I sent them notification on September 9th. I let them know that the study was scheduled for consideration by this commission. I asked them to provide any concerns to me by the 13th. I heard nothing. I reached out to the unions again with my analysis and recommendation on Monday, and I heard nothing. So personally, I've heard nothing from the unions, but there has been plenty of opportunity from April until today for the unions to address concerns with their employees. So I just have to express a little frustration on my part as well, that I don't know what happened there. That happens outside of this process, but this study has been off the agenda for months. And so it's a little frustrating that concerns are coming forward at the last minute again. I don't believe the union is on this call. They were invited to participate and no one has reached out to me. So I know that the department has discussed, I saw several emails back and forth between the union and the department. There were some concessions. I think they made a couple little tweaks to the study. This study has changed. The recommendations have changed since April. Commissioner Johnson, you and I spoke, for example, about the probationary period, and that was changed. So there have been changes made, and there has been multiple discussions back and forth. I don't know where the breakdown happened between the incumbents and the union. I can't speak to that because I'm not in, that's outside of my jurisdiction. But as your executive officer, it's always been very important for me to ensure that the union knows what's happening, that they have an opportunity to comment any concerns that they or their employees may have. They had indicated that they were okay with the classification study in one of the emails that I saw. So if their members had specific individual concerns, I wish that they would have been able to communicate with their members to help them through the process. So I just want to let you know, and Commissioner Blois, I know that you're new to this, and I wanted to just let you know that we take that relationship very seriously and it's very important. Also, just going forward with regards to granting status in the future, I've already communicated to DPS that there's going to be some changes so that when studies come before us where status is being granted, that they also have to indicate to us whether or not they've spoken to the incumbents, either in written form or verbal, when and if. I've got a checklist, so I will be enhancing that, and that'll be another box that will have to be checked before we determine that the study is ready for commission consideration, so that we don't run into this in the future. It doesn't mean we won't, because people, sometimes you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. So you can furnish individuals and employees or the union with as much information as possible, but if they don't respond or get back to you, there's little that we can do. But making sure that people are aware of the process and have an opportunity for comment and questions is paramount. Transparency has always been key for me in every position that I hold. As you all know, I'm an elected official. So I value that transparency and ensuring that people have that opportunity for comment. And so I'm always checking for that. So just for the purposes of the record, I wanted to put that out there.
Alice, this is not on you.
I understand.
Okay? I want to make sure that this is not on you. I believe this is on the department for not bringing those people in and discussing this issue with them. And maybe their union. I'm not concerned about their union. I'm concerned about an individual. Unions have a way of sometimes looking over are these people gonna be union members when are they or are they not? I mean, I don't know if they are or whether they're, whatever. This is not on you, so please don't take it personal.
Oh, I don't
Okay?
take it personal.
This is on the department for not being inclusive and talking to the individuals.
Mhm.
And there's a motion and a second on the table, I believe.
You have
Good
Mr.
afternoon.
Chavez has,
I see someone's hand up, so.
yes.
I think
Yes.
Joseph, you had yours first. Go ahead.
All right, good afternoon, Commissioner Joseph Shea, Department of Personnel Services. I just want to expound on what your executive director has mentioned. So these employees are represented by the engineering technicians and technical inspectors, ETTI. And it's my understanding, in addition to what Alice has said, that they were noticed, we had a chance to an ongoing meeting with them. And thank you for that clarification, Alice, that it is a meet and discuss. In addition to that, it's my understanding that when Mark sent out the notices, there were parts whereby they had a direct contact where if they have questions pertaining to what changed, what didn't change, they had an opportunity to ask those questions. And Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, several of them reached out and worked with you directly and had questions and you answered them. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes, Joseph.
Okay, so they have had a chance to review and or at least get some questions they may answered, and they may or may not have agreed, but at least they hopefully understood some of it that's moving forward. But I guess it potentially may not have been to their satisfaction. So I'll turn that over to Juan.
Okay, actually, I have Crystal on the line still, so I know she wanted to make a comment. Crystal, you there still?
Yes, I am.
Go ahead.
Yes, I have been in contact with my union. There has been a fair amount of correspondence, and I thought that they would have been on the call today. And I was under the impression from what they were corresponding to me about was that they have been corresponding with you guys. But it sounds like maybe they haven't. In addition to the fact that the full extent of what is happening is, from how I've understood it, has not been explained in the manner in which Alice had explained it to me earlier. In the sense that potentially we could be out of a job.
Crystal, I have a question.
I don't think that my department would leave us, without a job. I trust that they would take care of us. But it has not been explained to us in the manner in which Alice explained it.
This is Commissioner Nick Blois. I had a question for Crystal. Is it possible that you could pass along I'm just trying to figure out how we can do this. Who is your union rep? What is her phone number and email so that you could get that to Alice? That would be probably the best and most direct way that the union could communicate directly with this board.
And actually, Commissioner Blois, I do have that information because I've already reached out to the union twice.
I know, but I also know how unions have been lately, and sometimes they don't get back to you and sometimes they're overwhelmed. Unless you make contact with the union and actually talk to someone, I would not consider that contact. There could be failures. You have the wrong phone number, you have the wrong email, they changed something. Respectfully, you got to talk to them or get an email from them. Otherwise, it's not communication as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And I think the issue for me is I don't care what the union did. I'm concerned the department did not talk to these individuals and explain, as Alice explained, what would happen in the circumstances. That the union sometimes they look at the bigger picture. I'm looking at the picture of these 5 individuals and whether the department talked to them about it. That's where I'm coming from.
And I can speak to that, obviously representing the department here. And as Crystal just said, there certainly wasn't that level of detail in the discussions. And unfortunately, I understood that there was more involvement from the union in regards to the process itself and discussing and expressing questions or concerns if there were any, but this has been insightful for me, and so I just wanted to at least speak to that and acknowledge. I'm happy to entertain, obviously, the motion or whichever direction we end up going. If there's a need for further discussion, I'm certainly, on behalf of the department, happy to engage with staff to be sure that at least the commission here has that understanding and confidence that that process has been, vetted through.
Yeah, and this is Commissioner
Thank you.
Blois. I just wanted to thank everyone for their efforts here. I just wanted to say that the union and the employees should, there's basically a communications breakdown and not everybody is aware of what's going on. And I think that's what this is clearly identified. So I'm not, I have no anger at anybody. I think if we all talk, I think we could have a happier resolution and you'd have a lot happier employees as well. I've made a motion, I believe, to continue this if that's still what the commission wants to do.
And I still second that. And I'd like to call for the question.
Under the question, I just need to have some clarification. You're asking that we continue this item until another meeting. For what purpose? What do you want me to do between now and then? Do you want the department to poll each of the incumbents on their position for the granting status? What is it that you would like to see ultimately? I just need to know what, or am I just going to bring this item back exactly as it is?
I would say, Alice, one item is I would like to have at least some response from that union representative to you. Okay, I mean, something from that union. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that union rep. Perhaps that union rep is out and there's another one. So that's one. And then I think each employee should be consulted about. So 2 items, the two concerns.
I would agree with that.
So just to be clear, I have to try to find this. I need to try to contact this union representative by phone. Hopefully they'll get back to me. But you don't want to have this come before you until there's been communication between me and the union. And what do you want from the department do you want to have the department a statement saying that they have spoken with each of the incumbents with regards to the proposal and their positions are X, Y, and Z? Is that what you want? I just need to be clear so everyone's clear. When this comes to you again, you have exactly what you want. So I get the union piece.
It would be nice if the employees signed a document saying they received and they had a discussion with their supervisor concerning the changes in reclassification. I mean, I don't know if that's going too far, but it would seem that would be clear that they have spoken and learned. It's all about communication, and that's kind of the challenge we have in this county is communication is not necessarily clear. And I think I appreciate Commissioner Studer bringing this up. I did not realize that there was a communication.
So the only thing I would like to just offer is that, if we're going to require employees to sign a document stating that they've been consulted, that we're setting a precedent. There are times where you have a class study before you with hundreds of people that could be potentially reallocated. And that could take months or even years to get every employee to sign something and return it because they may not return it. In this particular instance, you only have 4 incumbents. But I just want to, I just want to be careful with the precedent that we set because it may make it, almost impossible to ever get something before the commission again. So if I might, again, I will reach out to the union and I will ask that they call me back. I will, and I will report to you at our next meeting if I haven't heard from them. And then with regards to the employees, what I would request the department do is to provide the explanation that I've provided over this meeting to them in an email with me CC'd and asking them to confirm that they've received it. And then I can have just a confirmation that they had the email. And hopefully they will, hopefully those 4 employees will do that so that I'm not having to rush around trying to get people.
I'm not necessarily interested in a signed document, and I'm not necessarily interested in sending emails back and forth. I'm more
Okay.
concerned to ask the department, have you discussed this item with these employees? And if they say, yes, we have, I'm happy. But if they say,
Okay.
well, no, I don't know, maybe one's not, there are thousands of people in some classes. That's important to get the union. I don't care, but I'm talking about when we grant status to somebody.
Commissioner
We are
Suter,
saying to those people, you are now going to be reclassified into another job if the department chooses to do that. I think it's important that the department discusses it with the incumbents that we're granting status to. That's all I'm saying.
Commissioner Suter, if you don't mind my interruption, this is Joseph Shea again. It's my understanding that Vanessa De Leon is currently on the line, and she is the labor relations officer that has actually met with ETTI. In addition to that, it's also my understanding that the department is actually undergoing some restructuring. And so I don't believe that they currently have a director. So it's one that has been a bit of a challenge. And so the DPS has been working with the department itself and trying to move it forward and communicating with the employees. If you don't mind, if we can turn it over to Vanessa, that maybe she can expound a little bit in terms of the discussion with the labor union.
We have a motion on the table. We have a second. This meeting could go on for days. I would like to call for the question because I will not vote to approve this matter as it is, no matter who I hear from, because in my opinion, the department, whether they have a director, an acting director, supervisors, somebody should have talked to these employees. Apparently, nobody did in the department. Whether the union did or not, I don't know. But that's my point, Mr. Johnson, Chair. I would like to call for the question so that we can move this forward and get to the next item on the agenda.
Question has been called for. Gina, could you please call the roll?
Commissioner Boyce, how do you vote?
aye.
Commissioner Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Suter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so then for my homework, I'm going to reach out to the union again and just have a communication with them about what we're proposing to do. And then for the department, if you could bring in your 4 incumbents and have the same conversation with them, then and then confirm with me that there has been that conversation. And then provide me with each of your incumbents' names and their emails, and I will include them on my communication so that when we're ready to come before the commission again, they can be invited as a participant in the meeting should the commissioners have any questions. Does that sound fair enough, commissioners?
That sounds fair enough to me.
It sounds fair enough. I believe when the department has a discussion with them, that it is hopefully an in-person discussion where there can be, let's say, questions asked. It's very hard sometimes to question an email.
Yes.
They can do something on Zoom or team meetings or something.
Yes. If we can do it, anybody
apparently
can.
they work in the same building because the
Right.
Crystal just happened to be off today at a Zoom. So apparently they all work in the same building. So I would hope that we could get them all 4 in the same room and say, this is what's happening. This is our recommendation. This is why we're moving forward this. It's going to make everything better. That's the whole issue of us approving a new job, is to make things better. But I think we need to have the employees at least know what's happening. They don't have to agree with it, but they at least should know what's going on.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, great. So DPS, once we can talk about this further when we're going offline, but essentially I'll want to know the exact date that you've had that meeting, with that face-to-face meeting with the incumbents. and then the incumbents that you met with and their email addresses so that we can include them in our communications.
Okay.
Thank you.
With that, we will move to item 8, our executive officer's verbal report to the commission.
Thank you
And I
very
thank
much.
everybody for their time and patience.
Thank you. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
All right. So I just want to let you know, we began this discussion earlier with regards to our next meeting dates. We have quorum issues coming up in October, so we were looking at November 5th for the next meeting. We were considering whether or not that would be an in-person meeting because we do have a release from probation appeal hearing to hear. And it's very difficult doing those on Zoom because we have to go in and out of different Zoom sessions in order to go in and out of closed session and to return to open session again. So I don't know, Commissioner Blois, you were not on the call at that time, but I think that you had indicated that you were available for a meeting on November 5th. And then at this time, I think that will be an in-person meeting to allow for that release from probation appeal hearing to happen. As I mentioned, there was legislation recently signed by the governor that allows local jurisdictions like ourselves to continue with remote meetings as long as there is a state of emergency declared by the governor. So we do have that flexibility should the commission decide it's more appropriate to continue in that venue. But I believe that and maybe I should speak, I can talk with the board clerk. I don't know if other commissions and committees are meeting in person yet. Alma, are you able to discuss that or to speak to that?
As of today at 2:58, no, they are not. Other than the Board of Supervisors, they're the only ones who are meeting in person.
So do you think that by November 5th, because that's, quite a ways out, do you think that the boards and commissions will be back to in-person then, or do you think that everybody will still be remote?
I don't know, Alice. I don't really, truly, I don't know.
Okay. And then the next question would be, is that if we did a remote meeting on November 5th, whether or not you're available? Because I know that if we do it remotely, then we run that through you. And so if you're available, then we could consider that. If you or no one from the clerk's office is available, then we have to go to the 19th, which is our standard Zoom meetings for the past almost 2 years now.
Yes, we are available.
Okay, so we could do that meeting remotely. So commissioners, I would just say that let's plan for a meeting on November 5th. It may or may not be in person. We'll just wait and see what the county is doing with regards to in-person meetings, if that's acceptable to you. So again, our next meeting would be on November 5th because of quorum issues. We also have, we could potentially have 2 meetings in November. Right now, we're calendared for the 5th and the 19th. And then our following meeting would be December 17th. And we do have an allocation appeal hearing scheduled for the 17th, but those are not conducted in closed session. Those are open session hearings. Right now, we have the Airport Operations Dispatcher Series class study that would be scheduled for November 5th. We may or may not have the construction labor compliance. It will just depend on union conversations and whether or not we can check the boxes that have been assigned to us. We also have the 2021 Waste Management Systems Technician class study. Initially, that was scheduled for today, but the union and the department requested that be pulled off before the agenda went out. So I'm not sure when that study will be ready, but it's in the pipeline as well. And then the 2021 Sheriff's Series class study is out there as well. That will either be on November 5th or 19th, depending on availability, and DPS is checking with the parties to see which date works for them. So there's a lot of moving parts right now and a lot of just up in the airs with regards to in-person or what have you, but we'll get there and we'll get things scheduled and we will persevere. I also just wanted to report to you that once we are able to meet safely in person, then we will take that opportunity to formally thank Commissioners Mocht and Purdy for their service since they've retired during COVID. And lastly, I didn't receive any new appeals this week. Right now, we have 4 release from probation appeals and the 1 allocation appeal pending before you. And I did receive a brand new class study just this week, the 2021 Water System Series class study for my preliminary review, and my comments will be due to DPS in the next couple of weeks. So that's all that I have on my report.
Alice, I did have one question.
Uh-huh.
If this CMID item is ready, I'm willing to hear it on November the 5th. So no, this doesn't have to be postponed that long if that's possible.
November the 5th, if the construction one?
Yeah, the one we just put on continuance. If they're ready by November 5th, I'm ready to hear it again. I mean,
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
I don't want them to have to delay forever. I mean, if I would have, it seems like an easy fix, it would seem.
Yes, it's just a matter of whether or not we just have to make sure that I've been able to speak with the union and that the employees have been consulted. So as long as those things can be done before that meeting, then absolutely we'll put it on. So it's in the queue as well. I'm just saying that I know what my marching orders are and the department understands what it needs to have happen before we can schedule that. And if those things can be done, then we'll absolutely bring it before you on November 5th. But if I'm playing phone tag with the union for 2.5 months and they don't call me back, I'm not going to bring it back to you until I've had that conversation based on your direction.
Yeah, if you could give us an update though on your weekly status that you've contacted,
I will.
and you're not getting an answer. I might have contacts that can get to them. I mean, it's just the fact that calling them and not getting an answer back. That's not communications to me. I mean, you're trying, but people change phone. I don't know. It's just crazy things happen, and I'm just kind of curious if there was any input, especially if you didn't get anything via email. So
yes, and what happens is there was email back to Vanessa, who is the labor relations person. So even though I sent my email to the exact same person, I got the email address from Vanessa herself, who actually I have emails between the two of them. The union just didn't contact me. So I don't know why. I can't speak to that. But I have a procedure and a process in place that's worked pretty well for us. Trying not to hold things up. We've left it, when I reach out to them, I send them my report, I send them the department's report. But it's the same information and I received that from Vanessa or whoever the labor relations person is that has been having the direct conversations with that individual. So, but I'll keep you apprised, as I mentioned in my earlier statement, that I'll keep you apprised on my ability to reach them.
Alice, this is Commissioner Johnson.
Uh-huh.
I am frustrated like you at times of how unions and management communicate back and forth. My more concern on this is how management maybe communicates with its own employees. Unions have their own responsibility, and sometimes I would like them to, let's say, do it a little bit better. At the same time, management has the skills and should communicate and make their employees comfortable. Because what was expressed to us is that there was fear of losing a job, and that's a big fear. And so we need to educate people, and it can be done both ways by management and labor.
I echo Mr. Johnson's comment that it's my issue is the communication between the department and the employee. I realize that when working with unions, sometimes they don't respond. That's just them, unfortunately. But my thing is, if we can check that box, if they talk to their employees, then I'm happy.
Good.
Does Mr. Boyce or Mr. Suter have any other questions for our executive officer?
Nope, I move we adjourn.
All right, I have one question on that. You were saying there were some still appeals going on. Have you been how's the timeliness of the appeals going? I know at one time there was difficulty getting them scheduled with city attorney, everybody working together. And now there had been some issues of finding court reporters and the timeliness that getting appeal accomplished is slipping away from us.
The process definitely has been delayed with COVID, and court reporters and so forth. But right now, another thing that I'm working with the county is additional contracts for court reporters. It would actually be the county-wide contract versus, so anybody could use those, not just us. So we're working to expand our access to different vendors. And so I've been working with them on that. And then
so are appeals held up? I mean, do we
right now,
have
they're
court
not being
reporters
held
now to
up.
use?
Right now, we don't have any appeals that are being held up. We have an appeal that's set for hearing on October 21st. So we're working to secure a court reporter for that hearing, but we're not delaying any hearings because of that right now. We've been able to work around it. It's been a lot of extra work. I mean, in addition to getting everything ready for these meetings, those appeals take a lot of work from me as well. So I'm doing all of that behind the scenes as well. But I've been able to work with general services and make some concessions so that we can make sure that we've had court reporters
Thank
outside of our contract. So, moving mountains.
If there are no further questions, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn. Ron Suter.
Second.
All,
I second.
Gina, could you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Boyce, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Johnson, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Suter, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.